gray. The rain lashed against the window pane, a steady rhythm that matched the thrum of my thoughts. The glass of bourbon in my hand sloshed as I swirled it absent-mindedly, staring out at the darkened woods surrounding the pack house. Memories flitted through my mind like ghosts, each one a reminder of the choices I had made and the threads of deception I'd so carefully spun. Playing with people's minds has always been something I enjoyed. Leaving things to fate was a risk I couldn't afford. The thing I wanted could be snatched from me in a blink of an eye, and I could not let that happen. I always had to be in control, or life would control me. That was until I met her. The first time I met her, my mate, I knew fate had played a cruel joke. She was kind, delicate, everything I wasn't. Opposites attract, or some bullshit. Cora was like a dove, so pure and so innocent. You would think a bond forged by the moon goddess herself should have been enough, but it wasn't. I found Cora so boring that it became offensive at some point. It was that point that made me realize that my life could not be so miserable. I wanted more. I wanted fire, passion, and submission on my terms. That's how I found her, the Omega with golden eyes and a wolf that cowered at my dominance. She was everything my mate wasn't, and for a while, she made me forget. What I yearned for, she gave me more than I could have anticipated. My fingers drummed on the table, following the rhythm of the rain. But forgetting came at a price. The night I first betrayed my mate was etched in my memory. She had prepared dinner, the scent of rosemary and roasted lamb filling the air. Her smile was warm, welcoming, and wholly undeserved. I remember the way her eyes searched mine as if looking for answers to questions she was too afraid to ask. I avoided her gaze, my wolf stirring with guilt, but the pull of my Omega's scent still lingered on me. My Omega was more than perfect for me. The moon goddess made a mistake. I knew it. It kept hammering in my mind. I started the wolfbane that night. At first, it was just a precaution, a way to ensure she didn't sense the betrayal I carried with me. A few drops in her tea, subtle enough to go unnoticed, but the guilt grew, and with it my desperation. Soon, the wolfbane wasn't just a precaution, it became my shield. I told myself it was for her own good, that a weaker wolf would mean fewer questions, fewer confrontations. In a way, my soul was being torn apart. Cora's pain was mine, but either her pain or the truth. I couldn't let the truth ruin an empire I carefully built. It wasn't supposed to be this way. If the moon goddess had just done right by me, then I wouldn't have to see her suffer. I watched as her health deteriorated. She grew paler and thinner, her once vibrant wolf barely a flicker within her. The doctors called it a rare condition, something that weakened her heart and left her bedridden. They had no answers, no treatments. She never blamed me, though she had every right to. Instead, she held my hand through it all, whispering apologies for not being strong enough. Her greatest regret was never giving me a child. When Layla was born, I convinced myself it was fate correcting its mistake. My Omega's golden hair and my steel-gray eyes stared back at me in that infant's face, and for a fleeting moment, I felt something close to love. Layla became my pride, my proof that I could shape the world to my will. But pride is a dangerous thing. My affair caused me to skip border patrols, and that was when things took a wrong turn. A terrible one. The Alpha's daughter disappeared under my watch, and everything unraveled. I was supposed to be patrolling the northern border that night, but I was with my mistress instead, tangled in sheets and lies. When the Alpha stormed into my office, his fury like a hurricane, I knew my life hung by a thread. He demanded answers, compensation, and justice, and I gave him Layla. Nothing shattered my heart more, but that was the only way. My own flesh and blood, handed over like a bargaining chip. The payout was substantial, enough to silence the whispers of my failure and keep my mate in comfort. I told myself it was for the best. Layla would have a future, and I would have peace. But peace was fleeting. The glass in my hand trembled, and I set it down on the desk with a sharp clink. My mate's room was just down the hall, the faint hum of machines a constant reminder of how close she was to the edge. I couldn't let her die. Not because I loved her, I wasn't sure I was capable of that anymore, but because her death would weaken me. And Alpha's strength was tied to his Luna, even a broken one like her. She needed to be alive. That was the only reason she was alive, because of my strength. This suffering would have ended for both of us a long time ago if I didn't rely on her. I sighed deeply. I found Bella during a patrol one night, unconscious and bleeding in the woods. She was barely more than a child, her scent unfamiliar but strangely comforting. I didn't know where she came from or how she ended up in our territory, but I didn't care. She was an opportunity, a way to redeem myself. I brought her to my mate, who had been growing weaker by the day. The moment Bella entered the room, my mate's eyes lit up, and for the first time in years, she smiled. It was as if Bella had breathed life back into her. My mate began accepting treatments, clinging to the hope that she might live long enough to raise the girl who had so miraculously appeared. I let her believe Bella was a gift, her salvation. But I always had a plan. I arranged for Bella to marry Max, a wealthy alpha from a neighboring pack. The alliance would strengthen our position and rid me of a girl I had no use for. But Max had his sights set on Layla instead, and my perfect daughter proved to be anything but. She basked in his attention, ignoring the plans I'd laid out for her future. Bella became a thorn in my side, a reminder of everything I had failed to control. The $1 million payment I received when she left should have been enough to wash my hands of her. I told myself she was gone for good, off to New York to start a life that no longer concerned me. But then the call came. Layla's voice was sharp and tearful, her accusations cutting through my thoughts like a knife. She painted Bella as the villain, claiming she had come to New York to humiliate her, to take everything Layla had worked for. I didn't believe her entirely. Layla had a knack for dramatics, but her plea was enough to reignite my anger. Bella had always been a problem, and now she was a problem I had to deal with. I needed leverage. I stepped into my mate's room, the soft glow of the monitors illuminating her frail form. She looked so small, so breakable. Her once bright eyes were dull, her skin pale and translucent. She didn't deserve this, but then again, neither did I. "I'm sorry," I murmured, pulling the vial from my pocket. The liquid inside shimmered a soft blue that belied its deadly nature. I added a few drops to her IV, watching as it mixed seamlessly with the saline. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open to meet mine. "Gray?" Her voice was weak, a shadow of what it used to be. "Rest," I said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Everything will be okay." She smiled faintly, her trust in me unwavering. It made me sick. I left the room, my mind already spinning with plans. I dialed Bella's number, my fingers steady despite the turmoil churning inside me. She answered on the second ring, her voice sharp and wary. "What do you want?" "Is that any way to greet your father?" I feigned hurt. I wasn't her alpha anymore, so this was the only way to extort her and punish her for Layla. It was a good plan, but at the expense of my mate. A pity. It truly was. She had gone through a lot, but it wasn't my fault. The moon goddess was the one that brought this on her. She should blame her. Bella scoffed. "Why did you call me? To exert your non-existent fatherly love?" "Your mother's condition has worsened," I said, injecting just enough sorrow into my tone to make it believable. "She doesn't have much time left. She's asking for you." The silence on the other end stretched thin, and for a moment I thought she might hang up. "I'll be there," she said finally, her voice tight with emotion. Bella loved her adoptive mother even more than her mate. Cora was truly pitiful in every sense of the word. I hung up, a satisfied smirk curling my lips. Bella would come back, and this time she wouldn't leave. Not until I got what I wanted. My mind raced with possibilities. I could sell her to one of the businessmen who frequented the territory, men with money and influence who would pay handsomely for a girl like her. Or perhaps I'd use her to further my alliance with Cataract Pack, offering her as a bride in exchange for power. Either way, she wouldn't escape me again. As I poured myself another glass of bourbon, a sense of satisfaction washed over me. The rain outside continued to fall, a steady drumbeat that mirrored the chaos in my soul. This time I would win. Bella. I could feel it deep in my gut. Something wasn't right. I could not put a finger on it yet, but I knew inside me. Gray. He was the most conniving person I knew. And not only conniving, he was manipulative and deceptive. What if calling me back home was just another trap? He did say he would make me pay for running away, and although he asked for $5 million and I sent $1 million, he hadn't pestered me for more. There were so many loopholes, and the more I pondered, the more confused I got. It was tiring. Maybe I was just overthinking it, and Cora was really in trouble. Maybe she was really dying. I couldn't ignore that. She was very sick even when she helped me escape the dungeon. What if Gray was responsible for her health deteriorating? What if he beat her up despite her failing heart condition? I honestly wouldn't put it past him. These thoughts made me restless through the day and gave me sleepless nights. I want to make sure Cora is fine, but for that to happen, I have to return to the Moonlight Pack. I shuddered as I thought about returning to that place. I pushed the thoughts to the far corner of my mind as I dragged myself out of bed and into the bathroom. I went over my morning routine, brushed my teeth, slipped out of my two-piece nightwear, and took a hot bath. I exited the bathroom with a white plush towel wrapped around my chest and another one wrapped against my damp hair. I walked into my closet, picking out a knee-length skirt and a flowery chiffon top. I slipped into the piece of clothing, turning my hips left and right as I accessed my reflection on the full-length mirror. When I was sure I looked good in the outfit, I took my seat before the vanity mirror. I did light touches of makeup, mascara, subtle eyeliner, and a nude pink shade of lipstick. I held my hair up in a ponytail, securing it tight with a scrunchie and letting a few strands frame my face. Lastly, I put on a pair of pearl earrings that made my entire look elegant and professional. I looked good, and I liked it. I resumed work at Alpha Ralph's company a few days ago, and I have been loving my new job. I started a new project yesterday, and I hope to finish it today. I walked through the lobby, flashing smiles and returning good mornings to my colleagues. I walked into my office, set down my bag and paper coffee cup, and recoiled into my swivel chair. I flip open my laptop and get straight into it. The project was enhancing Ralph's systems with a stronger firewall, and it was more tasking than I had initially presumed. A few times, out of frustration, I slammed the laptop shut and recoil in my chair, tapping my feet lightly on the tiled floor as I contemplated a new perspective to take on. After a few failed attempts, I was finally getting a hang of it, and I could feel warmth spread in my chest out of sheer joy as I tapped away on the keyboard, the clicking sounds filling the silence. When I was finally done, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "I have to admit that your brilliance astounds me." He walked in with a smile, touching his lips, and I couldn't help but bask in the compliment. I smiled back, shutting the laptop and pushing my seat backwards. "What can I say? I'm good like that," I replied playfully. I started to feel a headache coming on, but I paid no heed to it. Must be because I skipped lunch and breakfast, apparently. "Well, you are incredible, and it would be pretty awesome if you would ditch Ralph and come work for me." As he spoke, I saw something else gleam in his eyes, but I couldn't place it. And why on earth would she do that? Alpha Ralph's voice boomed through the room as he stepped in. "Because I'm going to offer her more than you're willing to play." Kai's voice had a playful lilt to it, but I knew he meant it when he said he wanted me to come work for him. "Oh, shut up!" Ralph replied with a chuckle as he stepped further into my office, tucking his hands in his pockets. They continued their playful banter, but I could hardly concentrate with the sharp pain searing through my forehead. I stood up to go to the restroom and wash my face, but as I took a step forward, my legs gave me away to the ground. The last thing I saw was Kai and Ralph hovering over me, concern etched on their features as my vision slowly blurred, then turned black, and the last thing I heard was Kai's voice, although distant, begging me to keep my eyes open as the sound faded to silence. My eyelids felt heavy, like cement bags were hanging from them, as I struggled to open my eyes, adjusting to the sudden brightness off the room. I looked around and saw a nurse in a blue gown, checking holding up a tray of medications, and she flashed me a small smile. "You're awake. Where's, I trailed off, but Janaoyong what to call Alpha Ralph. Was he now family? A friend? I had no idea. But the nurse seemed to get the memo. She nodded, walking out of the room, and seconds later, Ralph walked in. "Bella, are you okay?" He spoke softly as he cautiously approached me, and I nodded, feeling a hoarseness in my throat. Ralph settled into the chair beside my hospital bed, his movements deliberate and weary. As he exhaled a deep sigh, his eyes locked onto mine, filled with a genuine concern that made my heart skip a beat. "You scared me," he whispered, his voice barely audible, but its impact reverberated through me like a gentle earthquake. Something within me stirred, awakening a flutter in my chest and a tremble in my core. The sensation was both unsettling and comforting, like a warm ember igniting deep within. I sensed the sincerity behind Ralph's words, not just from the earnest gaze that cradled his eyes, but because my wolf intuited the truth. My inner wolf, ever vigilant, detected the authenticity of Ralph's emotions. Her keen senses picked up on the subtle vibrations of his voice, the faint scent of worry wafting from his pores, and the gentle tension in his shoulders. She recognized the unmistakable signature of genuine fear, and in that moment, I knew Ralph's alarm wasn't merely a polite expression. He had truly been scared for me, and that realization wrapped around my heart like a soothing balm, calming the tremors within. There was another realization, though. My wolf now had the ability to detect truth. "Whoa." "I'm all right," I replied, trying to reassure him, ease his worries. "What did the doctor say?" "Dehydration and exhaustion," he answered, and I nodded. It was just as I had expected. If my wolf knew that Ralph was trustworthy, then I should definitely tell him about my plans to return to Moonlight Pack for Cora's sake and bring her back to New York so I could take proper care of her. "That wouldn't be a problem," he said after I had finished talking. "I can even ask my assistant to book your flight. I'll come with you." We turned in the direction of the new voice to see Kai standing at the entrance watching me. "You really don't have to." "I want to," he replied, a small smile touching his lips. "Hey, breathe." Kai spoke from beside me as we drove through the gates of the house Gray lived in. I hated to admit that I was grateful for his presence here with me, but I was. I needed the support more than I would have imagined. The driver switched off the ignition, and that was our cue to get out of the vehicle. As we walked into the living room area, I felt my chest contract. The environment was very uncomfortable, toxic. I could hardly breathe. "There you are, Bella." He said my name like it was bitter or stung his tongue, his face all scrunched up in disgust as he descended the stairs. "What did you think?" He quipped a brow at me, a coy smile grazing his lips. "That you would escape from me and I would do nothing about it?" "Where's my mother?" I asked, going straight to the point. "She's not your mother, you fool." He raised his voice. "And do not fucking talk back when I'm talking to you." Kai's hand found mine as I stood, watching Gray talk to me like he always had, with barely any regard. "You broke off your engagement with Max, then disrespected his mate. And when I punished you for it, you fled like the ducking cowards that you are." The silence that followed was tension thick, and I saw Gray's eyes move to the space between Kai and I, where our fingers were intertwined, and it was like he noticed him for the first time. "And is this the boyfriend you ran off to meet?" He sneered, staring at Kai with those eyes that portrayed nothing but evil intentions. "How dare you, Bella?" He took a few steps towards me and Kai's hold on my hand tightened. I could tell he was getting upset. "How dare you call off your engagement with Max? And how dare you bring your boyfriend to my house?" He finished, simultaneously raising his hand to hit me when Kai pulled me behind him, catching Gray's hand midair. "The next time you raise your hand to my mate, I'll make sure you never use it again." He spoke and I felt that jolt again. My wolf could sense that he spoke the truth. He really considered me his mate. On cue, my heart raced, thumping against my rib cage with two words echoing in my mind. His mate, Layla. I walked back into the pack house, looking for Ralph. The servants had told me he was back, and I needed to talk to him, or rather he asked me to come talk to him. I wanted to make some excuse, but sister or not, I couldn't just say no to an alpha. I spotted a maid hurrying down the hall, her head down as she tried to avoid making eye contact with me. I wasn't in the mood for being avoided, so I stepped into her path and called out, "Hey, do you know where Ralph is?" She looked up, startled at first, before quickly composing herself. "Alpha Ralph is in his office, ma'am," she said, her voice a little nervous. "Alpha Kai is also here as well." The mention of Kai hit me like a wave. I definitely hadn't expected to hear that. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face neutral. Without another word, I stepped past her, heading toward Ralph's office. the fact that Kai was here already making my thoughts swirl. Honestly, I had wanted him for years. I mean, who wouldn't? He was strong, respected, powerful, and exactly what I needed. And that's all outside of the fact that he's an alpha. Unfortunately, no matter how hard I tried, he had never cared about me. To him, I was probably just Ralph's adopted sister and nothing more. I did everything I could do to get his attention on me. Still, he never noticed me. At least not in the way I wanted. But just hearing his name, knowing he was close by, it felt like an opportunity I couldn't pass up. He was everything I could ever want in a mate. Strong, capable, and positioned in a place of power where anyone would want to be. He could provide the security and status I craved. Why are you just thinking in circles? You want him. We get it. My subconscious mocked. He doesn't even want you. So what's the point? It continued. If Kai gave me even the slightest sign, I would drop Max without hesitation. It wasn't about loyalty or love. It never had been. It was about what Kai could offer me. Security, power, status. Max, on the other hand, was just a means to an end. Sure, he had the title, but he didn't have the strength or the influence I needed. If Kai looked at me, even for a second, the way I wanted him to, I'd leave Max in a heartbeat. He was just a backup plan, nothing more. But Kai, he was quite literally everything I could ever dream of. The door clicked softly as I pushed it open, and I paused for just a second, taking in the familiar scent of wood and leather that filled Ralph's office. I was still wrapped up in thoughts of Kai. Ralph was sitting at his desk, the dim light of the office casting shadows across his sharp features. His attention was focused on a pile of paperwork, the top sheet slightly slanted as he wrote something down. He didn't look up when I entered, and for a moment, I just stood there, watching him. He didn't notice me standing there, so I cleared my throat, making my presence known. "Ralph," I said, my voice slightly more demanding than I meant it to be. He didn't react immediately, and I could feel the tension in my chest tighten as I waited for him to acknowledge me. Finally, his gaze lifted, and his eyes met mine, cold and unreadable, like always. He didn't smile. Just that look. He wasn't like this with the other people in the pack, so why was it just me? "What is it?" he asked, his voice flat. In the pack, aside from my adoptive mother, Luna Quinn, no one really liked me. Or at least that's what it felt like. Truthfully, I'd always known that. It was very clear in the way that everyone treated me, from alphas to strangers to even Severance. I'd spent so much time trying to fit in, trying to prove myself, but it never worked. No matter what I did, it felt like I just pushed everyone further away. I couldn't stop feeling their eyes on me, some looking at me with pity, others with something like disgust. It was like I didn't belong here, no matter how hard I tried. I wasn't even Alpha Luther's real daughter. I was just a replacement for his real one. Even if no one said it to my face, I knew that was exactly what they were all saying. You wanted to see me?" I asked, keeping my tone light, though my nerves were anything but. Ralph wasn't exactly known for wasting time. His eyes widened slightly as he remembered. "Oh yeah, about that," he gestured to the chair in front of him. "You can sit." I sat in front of him, confused about what was going on. What did he want to call me for? He leaned back in his chair, a faint smile playing on his lips, calm, calculated, like always. "So I've been in touch with my estate agent," he said, his voice smooth. "They've found some impressive apartments in New York. Great locations, spacious, and very exclusive." I blinked, taken aback. "Okay, and?" "And," he continued, as if I hadn't spoken, "they'd suit someone of your tastes perfectly. Penthouse views, all the amenities you could want. I've had them prepare some listings for you." "What?" I frowned. "I didn't ask for apartments." "I know," he replied, too casually. He steepled his fingers, his eyes never leaving mine. "But I thought it was time you considered a fresh start somewhere. Different." His words sank in slowly, each one heavier than the last. "A fresh start?" I repeated, the pieces clicking together. Are you trying to move me out?" "Layla," he said, a hint of impatience seeping into his voice, "it's an opportunity. You'd be more independent. Think of it as a chance to grow." My chest tightened. "Grow?" I echoed, almost surprised. "Or just get out of your way?" He didn't answer directly, but the silence spoke volumes. I didn't have to be a rocket scientist to know what was going on, but why exactly was he trying to get me to do this now? I couldn't allow my ties with the Ashwood Pack to be affected, especially before securing my place as Max's Luna yet. I knew I had to be smart about this. Leaving now could ruin everything I'd been working toward. I couldn't let that happen. I kept my expression calm as I turned to Ralph. If you're so eager to see me do well somewhere else, then let me prove myself here first. I can take care of Luna Quinn while she's in the hospital, I said. I tried to sound confident, like this was just another logical step, but really, I was desperate. If I didn't stay involved, I'd be forgotten. I needed this to work. Ralph stared at me, like he was deciding whether to laugh or argue. You, he said, his voice dripping with doubt. Taking care of her? Yes. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. She's our mother. Someone has to be there for her, and I can do it. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. That won't be necessary. Why not? I pressed. She needs someone. I'm here, and I'm willing since you must want me out if here so bad. His expression turned cold. You are not to go to her, he said flatly. It's not your place. I felt my chest tighten. Not my place, I echoed. I'm part of this pack, too. Barely, Ralph shot back. This isn't about you, Layla. His words stung, but I didn't let it show. I couldn't give him the satisfaction. Fine. But this doesn't change anything, I said, meeting his gaze. I'm not going anywhere. And with that, I stormed out of the office. I spotted an Omega maid walking down the hall as I stepped out and stepped into her path, my voice low but firm. Tell me what's going on in this house, I demanded, my grip tightening on her arm. The maid's eyes widened in fear, and after lots of threats and interrogation, she whispered the truth to me. Alpha Luther had found his biological daughter. The air left my lungs. No, this couldn't happen. I clenched my jaw. I couldn't lose everything. Not now. Bella. Kai being here with me made me feel safe. Gray had not dared to raise his voice at me, let alone his hand. It made my heart flutter, the knots in my stomach tighten. It made me happier than I would have imagined. And for the first time in forever, I didn't feel alone. That void was no longer there, and it was kind of weird how he fit properly into the space. As we walked towards Cora's hospital ward, I stole glances at his profile, etched in sharp relief against the soft glow of the hospital lights. His jawline, strong and defined, moved subtly with each step, its gentle flexing a testament to the tension coiled within. The faint scruff on his chin added a rugged edge to his refined features. With each stride, his broad shoulders shifted beneath his fitted shirt, accentuating the powerful physique that commanded attention. His eyes, fixed ahead, gleamed with an intensity that bordered on ferocity, their piercing quality undeniable even in profile. The sharp lines of his nose and cheekbones seemed chiseled from granite. As we navigated the hospital corridor, his long legs ate up the distance with ease, his stride confident and purposeful. His entire demeanor exuded authority, each step a declaration of dominance. Yet, despite the formidable presence, I felt safe. A ghost smile touched my lips. We reached her ward and I paused, my heart hammering in my chest as emotions flooded through me. Hey! Kai's voice pulled me out of my reverie, and as I turned to look at him, his features were softened, matching the comfort in his voice. I'm so glad he came along. I'm just a bit nervous, I admitted to him, fondling with my fingers. The last time I saw Cora, she helped my escape from the pack, and what if that led to Gray making her bedridden? What if she doesn't want to see me? I added, meeting his gaze. I don't want you to think too much about this. I took my hand in his, caressing the back of my palm with his thumb. And we'll never find out if we keep standing here anyway. The corners of his lias tugged up in a reassuring smile, and I nodded. I took a deep breath and pushed open the wooden door, and the sight before me broke me into pieces. She looked pale, almost lifeless. She was too thin. She looked breakable, weak. I felt a pang in my chest as I moved towards her slowly, tears welling up in my eyes. Just as though she could sense my presence in the room, she opened her eyes. A smile spread across her features, and even in her weak state, her smile still lit up the room, as vibrant as ever. I choked out a sob. Bella, she called my name, trying to hide the pain as she did, but I couldn't help but notice the way she squinted slightly, her brows drawing together and the subtle discomfort in her voice. Mom, I replied, pulling her into a hug, but the wince that escaped from her mouth had me pulling away almost immediately. I'm sorry, I muttered, and a tear slid down my cheek. It's really you, she smiled, a maddening contrast to the dilemma she was going through. I had to come. I had to check on you. I don't want you to. I choked out a sob, the word too heavy for me to speak. Cora couldn't die. I went to medical school all for her sake. Stop crying, baby, she said, holding my hand and raising it to her mouth to kiss it. I do a quick checkup on her, and now that I paid close attention, I noticed a few things that I hadn't noticed before. Her skin was reddish, she had drooping facial muscles, brittled nails, and blue-tinged gums. Oh my goodness. I breathed out, stumbling backwards. Hey, Kai was by my side in a second, sorry etched across his features. What's wrong? He asked, searching my face for answers. From the corner of my eyes, I could see Cora's worried expression, and I sighed. I needed to be strong for her. I walked to her, plopping down on the bed, right beside her. Mom, has Gray been poisoning you? I asked, feeling my chest constrict. Yes, there are physical signs that you have been poisoned. I nodded. Oh, Bella, is this your new tactic? I knew who the voice belonged to. I didn't have to turn towards the entrance to know that it was him. Tactic? I scoffed. Fortunately, unlike you, I don't succumb to uncanny means. His response was a breathy laugh, one that made all the hairs on my skin to stand. Why on earth are you trying to put the idea that I poisoned Cora in her head? He said as he took a few steps towards us. I only asked her if you did. I don't see why you're getting all defensive. I leisurely stroked Cora's hand, my gaze pinned on hers. She had been through so much. She deserved better. Or maybe you really did poison her, I replied, turning to meet his gaze. As usual, they were cold, holding no ounce of humanity. Why would I ever do that? He asked, bobbing his head to the side with his arms crossed behind him. Maybe because she was never able to give you a child, or maybe it's because she loves me and never treated me with bitterness and hatred as you would have liked. Or maybe it's because you're just a wicked, bad, heartless person. The silence that followed was eerie, the opinion drop type of silence. But I wasn't done talking. Whatever the reason is, I'm sure it's for your own selfish benefit. I stated matter-of-factly, and a coy smile touched Gray's lips. You think you know me so well, Bella, don't you? The sarcasm in his voice was pricking. I didn't reply. Well, I know just how much I need to know. I've witnessed and experienced your sheer wickedness firsthand. I raised my voice, feeling a strain in my throat, but I did not stop. Why on earth did you take me in if you only wanted to maltreat me? You already had so many maids. I'm sure you didn't take in to be another maid at the Pack. You should have just left me to die instead. I would have left you to die. I should have. But Cora here kept sulking that she couldn't bear a child, he retorted. You speak like you aren't as hurt that you couldn't both have kids. Maybe it was the moon goddess cursing you for your evil deeds, Gray. It's only too bad that you had to drag Cora into paying for your sins. I was on my feet now, anger flowing through my veins. Really? He let out a humorless chuckle. Unlike Cora, I'm not childless. I have a daughter, and I could really care less about you or her. She couldn't even give the Pack a air. Cora's gasp pierced through the room, causing me to turn in her direction. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. Fuck! So you went looking elsewhere? I asked in disbelief. I never really loved Cora, and I had no idea why the moon goddess gave her to me as a mate. I'm sure it was a mistake in her part, and that explains why we never had kids. He said it with so much nonchalance, I was astonished. How dare you? Cora's weak voice wasn't so weak anymore. You lied to me for years, pretended to love me, whilst having affairs and even children outside our marriage. Oh, dear Cora, you have been sick for so many years. You know a man always has needs. Gray was hands down the shameless person I've met. You made her sick. I spoke, my gaze meeting his, that now familiar jolt resonating through me. You don't know that, he defended, fear slowly seeping through his features. I wasn't going to waste my time on him. My wolf could tell that he poisoned Cora. I turned to Cora, who was now weeping silently on the bed. He doesn't deserve you, Mom. I took her hands on mine, wiping away the tears that were now sliding through her cheeks. Reject him as your mate, Mom, I urge her. I'll take you back to New York and we can treat you properly over there, right, Kai? I turned to him, silently asking him for support. He smiled and walked over to us, taking one of Cora's hands in his. "I know the best doctors in New York, and they'll make sure you're fine and back to your normal self," he reassures her, and I felt my heart skip a beat. Cora nodded and turned to Gray, her voice loud and clear. "I, Cora, reject you as my mate." "You think I'm going to let you off easily?" He scoffs. "I'll give you another $1 million if you let us take her out of here peacefully." Gray was a selfish bastard. All he cared about was himself. I knew he wouldn't turn down $1 million. "Sure thing," he smiled. "And I never want to see you in this pack ever again," he added, walking out of the room with the door slamming shut. K.I. The hum of the plane's engines created a steady rhythm that somehow intensified the silence between us. I leaned back in his seat, casting a glance at Bella, who sat across the aisle with her gaze firmly fixed on the sleeping figure of Cora beside her. Her eyes held a mixture of worry and exhaustion, and though I longed to reach out to her, I kept my distance, respecting the unspoken boundaries she had put up between us. In the dim light of the cabin, Bella looked more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. She wore her strength like armor, a shield that kept everyone at arm's length. But now, after everything I had learned about her past, I saw the weight she carried: sorrow, betrayal, and the lingering scars of heartbreak. It stirred something deep within me, a fierce desire to protect her, to be the one who could finally ease her burdens. I wanted to heal all her scars and take back every word they had said, to make her feel like she was nothing, because to me, Bella was everything. Mine, my mate. I could feel my wolf pacing restlessly within me, a constant presence urging me forward. My wolf had sensed it too. The pain she tried so hard to hide, the silent resilience she wrapped around herself like a cloak. There was admiration in my heart, but also sympathy, a deep, aching sympathy that made me want to be more than just a passing figure in her life. I wanted to be her anchor, the one she could lean on, the one she could trust. But even as I felt this pull toward her, regret gnawed at him, eating away at the resolve I had tried so hard to maintain. The memories of their past encounters flashed before me, each one a bitter reminder of my own foolishness. Fuck me. How many times had I tried to push her away? How many times had I attempted to deny the bond between us, driven by my own fears and doubts? My wolf growled in frustration, a low rumble that echoed my own self-reproach. It was a rare thing for my wolf to chastise me, but at this moment I understood why. "You are a fool," my wolf whispered, the words laced with disdain. "We could have had her by our side if only you hadn't been so blind." I clenched my fists, feeling the sting of truth in my wolf's words. I had been a fool, and now I was paying the price. Every look she refused to give me, every moment she spent focused on Cora instead of him. It was a reminder of my own failure, of the chance I had thrown away. But I was determined to make it right. I would win her back, no matter how long it took, no matter what I had to do. The hours passed slowly, each minute stretching into eternity, as I sat there, waiting for a moment alone with her. His gaze drifted over to Cora, who was still sleeping peacefully beside Bella. She had been through so much, and I was grateful they had been able to bring her here, to a place where she could receive the medical care she needed. But right now, my thoughts were consumed by Bella, by the burning need to speak with her, to tell her everything I had kept bottled up for so long. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Cora stirred, murmuring softly before drifting back into a deep sleep. I took a steadying breath, steeling myself as I leaned forward, my voice low and hesitant. "Bella," I murmured, careful not to wake Cora. She turned to him, her expression guarded, her eyes searching my face as if trying to gauge my intentions. "Yes." Her voice was calm, but I could sense the distance in it, the wall she had built between us. I hesitated, my heart pounding as I struggled to find the right words. I wanted to apologize," I began, his voice barely above a whisper, "for everything, for the way I treated you, for the times I tried to push you away. I know I've hurt you, and I wish I could take it all back." Bella's gaze softened slightly, but she didn't respond, her silence a painful reminder of the damage I had done. I didn't want to be the reason she was hurt ever again. Not me, not even the world. I pressed on, my desperation growing with each passing second. "My wolf," I paused, my throat tight. "He's been relentless, constantly reminding me of what I threw away. I was so afraid, Bella, afraid of letting someone in, afraid of what it would mean to truly open myself up. But now, I see what a fool I was. Still, she said nothing, her expression unreadable as she looked down at her hands. I felt my heart break a little more, the weight of her silence pressing down on me like a physical burden. But I couldn't give up. Not now. Not when I was so close. "Please, Bella," I whispered, my voice raw with emotion. "I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for another chance. Just let me prove to you that I can be the mate you need." She lifted her head, her eyes meeting mine with a quiet intensity that took my breath away. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, a glimmer of hope, maybe even forgiveness. But then she looked away, her expression hardening once more. "Thank you, Kai," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything you've done, for protecting us, for bringing Cora here. I appreciate it more than you know." The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken emotions. She was grateful, yes, but gratitude wasn't the same as forgiveness. I could see it in her eyes, the pain she still carried, the wounds that hadn't yet healed. My rejection had left a scar, one that ran deeper than I had realized. "I understand," I murmured, my voice filled with quiet resignation. "I know I've made mistakes, and I know it won't be easy to fix things. But I want you to know that I won't give up on you, Bella. No matter how long it takes, I'll be here." Waiting. She didn't respond, but I saw the faintest hint of a ghost smile across her lips before she turned back to Cora, her focus shifting once more. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give me a sliver of hope, a reminder that perhaps all was not lost. When they finally arrived in New York, the plane touched down smoothly, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I owned one of the best private hospitals in the city, and I had already arranged for Cora to be admitted immediately. With Bella by her side, I felt confident that Cora would receive the best possible care. We stepped out of the plane, the cool night air brushing against my skin as I led them to a waiting car. The city lights glittered in the distance, casting a warm glow over the landscape as we made our way to the hospital. Once there, I ensured that Cora was settled into a comfortable room, speaking with the doctors personally to make sure everything was prepared for her arrival. Bella stayed close to Cora's side throughout the entire process, her hand resting on her mother's shoulder as the doctors completed their examinations. I watched them from the doorway, my heart aching with a mixture of admiration and longing. Bella was fierce, determined, unbreakable, a force of nature, a woman who would stop at nothing to protect the people she loved. And I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I wanted to be part of her life, to share in that strength, to be the one she could rely on. When the doctors finally left the room, I approached her cautiously, my voice gentle. "She's in good hands here. I'll make sure of it." Bella looked up at me, her expression a mixture of gratitude and weariness. "Thank you, Kai, truly." I nodded, my gaze lingering on her as I struggled to keep my emotions in check. Would you let me drive you home?" I asked, my voice hesitant, almost pleading. "It's late, and I want to make sure you're safe." She hesitated, her eyes searching his face as if weighing her options. After a moment, she nodded, a small, reluctant smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "All right," she agreed quietly. "Thank you." We walked to my car in silence, the quiet night enveloping us as we climbed inside. I started the engine, my hands steady on the wheel as I navigated the city streets. The drive was peaceful, the soft hum of the car filling the silence between us. I stole a glance at her every now and then, my heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. Finally, he couldn't hold back any longer. "Bella," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. "I meant what I said. I'm not going to give up on you. I know it'll take time, but I'll wait. I'll be here whenever you're ready." She looked at me, my expression unreadable, but I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something that gave me hope, something that told me that I hadn't completely lost her. "Thank you, Kai," she murmured, her voice filled with a quiet strength that only made me admire her more. "For everything." The words were simple, but they held a weight that I couldn't ignore. I knew that I still had a long way to go and that the road ahead would be filled with challenges and obstacles. The city lights flickered outside the window, casting soft patterns of light and shadow across Bella's face. She looked out at the world passing by, her expression thoughtful, lost in her own memories and pain. I respected her silence, knowing that she needed time to process, to heal from the wounds both Mason and I had left behind. But being close to her like this, just the two of them in the quiet of the night, was enough to stir something warm in my chest. It was a small step, a moment I would cherish. When we finally arrived, I parked the car in front of her building and turned off the engine. The silence that followed was thick, filled with words left unsaid, emotions held back by fear and uncertainty. Bella turned to me, her eyes softening as she gave me a small, weary smile. "Thank you, Kai, for everything today, for being here." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat as I tried to keep my emotions in check. "Of course, Bella. I'll always be here for you, whenever you need me." She lingered for a moment, as if considering something, before finally opening the door and stepping out. But before she closed it, she turned back to me, her gaze meeting mine with an intensity that took me by surprise. "Kai," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I don't know if I'm ready or when I will be, but thank you for being patient." She wasn't ready to forgive me yet, but she hadn't closed the door completely. There was a chance for me to prove myself, to show her that I could be the partner she deserved. As she disappeared into the building, I sat there for a moment, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I allowed myself to feel the emotions I had been holding back. I was determined to be there for her, to be the one who could heal the wounds left by the past. My wolf stirred within him, a low growl of satisfaction rumbling in my chest. "We'll wait," my wolf murmured, a sense of peace settling over us both. "We'll be here for her, no matter how long it takes." I knew, deep down, that I wouldn't give up, not until Bella was truly mine, in both heart and soul. Bella. I couldn't deny having noticed Kai's new behavior towards me, and while it felt nice, I didn't trust his actions completely. For all I knew, I could be his rebound. Or maybe he was just looking to pass time and find a replacement. I sighed, staring at myself in the mirror. The floral dress I had on fitted my body perfectly. I almost smiled, merely staring at my reflection. I imagined Kai's reaction to seeing me. Something in me looked forward to it, as a matter of fact. I practically flew to the front door when I heard the doorbell. "Kai." I stopped right in front of the door, smoothing my dress and my hair before pulling it open. "Hi," I said simply, stepping aside for him to enter the house. He looked me over, his eyes twinkling with something indecipherable. His lips drew into a thin line before he focused his eyes back on mine. "Bella," he said, his voice coming out breathless. The little flutter in my chest was enough to remind me that he was not to be trusted, not completely, even though my wolf begged to differ. "You look amazing." "Thank you," I smiled. "You're here early. Let's go." He nodded, taking my hand and leading me to his car. The sun was bright outside, and a little breeze swayed the leaves. Kai didn't look too bad himself. Dressed in a cream-colored t-shirt that made his eyes pop, he looked like something right out of the movies. In no time, we were at the family house. I sighed as we walked in. I surveyed the crowd of familiar and new faces. The family had organized a meet-and-greet gathering. I guess this was my shot at knowing my blood siblings, for once and for all. The aroma of freshly baked cookies and savory appetizers filled the air, putting me at ease. Kai's gentle squeeze of my hand did well to calm my nerves as well. He seemed to just know. We stood at the entrance for a while, deciding to move further into the house, just before we were approached by Ralph. A smile spread on his face as he sauntered towards us, exchanging a single glance between Kai and myself, coming over to playfully nudge my shoulder. "You look tense." He smiled, briefly acknowledging Kai, who'd taken 2 steps behind when my brother joined us. "Oh, do I?" I asked, sarcasm lacing my tone. Ralph let out a chuckle. "Relax, kiddo. It's just a casual get-together," he said. "Sure." I nodded, smoothing my dress. Ryan grabbed my hand, leading me further into the house, introducing me to some of the people I'd seen somewhere or the other, but didn't quite know. By the time I'd met Emma and Sophia, I was already almost exhausted. None of them were my family members, but they sure did have a lot to say about my family. Ralph spared me a second to get a drink, and as I stood at the bar, I took a moment to actually observe my surroundings. People came in and out of the house, in pairs, groups, and so on, chatting animatedly, Greetings were thrown randomly across the room, followed by loud bouts of laughter. If I hadn't felt out of place before, I surely did now. Everyone seemed to already belong. I felt like an outsider in what was supposed to be my home. I sighed. I was used to this already, wasn't I? I turned back to the glass in my hand, downing its contents at a go. I didn't need to turn around to know he was near. My wolf stirred, sensing the mix of emotions in the room. Through my peripheral vision, I spotted Kai across the room. Turning to face him, our eyes locked, and my heart skipped a beat. His piercing gaze seemed to hold a deeper meaning, one I couldn't quite understand. Just like this morning. Kai made his way through the crowd, exchanging pleasantries with my supposed family members. As he reached me, his gaze crinkled at the corners as his lips curled up into a smile. "Bella," he said softly. "Hey," I replied, letting out a sigh and standing to meet his eyes. We stood in absolute silence for a moment, and the world seemed to quieten down a notch. The noise around us faded. It seemed like the busyness and chatter around us had suddenly disappeared. I knew what this meant. My wolf approved, way too much, of Kai's calm demeanor. Someone intervened, beaming. "Kai, I'm so glad you could make it." That was it. The bubble of tranquility that enveloped us had been effortlessly popped. He smiled. "Thanks for having me." As the evening unfolded, Kai effortlessly charmed my family and friends. I watched, intrigued by his ease. He listened attentively to their stories, asking thoughtful questions. During a lull in the conversation, he turned to me. "Want to grab some fresh air?" I almost leapt at the question. I'd barely been able to spend any time with Kai since we got here, and by now I'd met pretty much about 15 more people. I nodded before he had the opportunity to change his mind, and we slipped outside. The evening air carried a hint of promise as we strolled through the garden. The sky had obviously darkened, but golden rays spilled through the dark clouds, casting a magical glow around the house. I couldn't help but take a deep breath and smile to myself. Nature truly was beautiful. As we walked, Kai's hand brushed against mine. My wolf stirred, sensing the spark between us. I noticed he didn't pull away either. "You seem different," he said abruptly, turning to face me. I raised an eyebrow in confusion. "Different? How different?" Kai's gaze locked onto mine. He smiled. "More confident, more you." My heart fluttered. "I just wanted to catch some time with you. Something came up. I might have to leave soon." "Oh," I said, trying to hide my disappointment. Kai had been the highlight of my day, and now he was about to leave me in this house to deal with all these people on my own. I wished he could stay, but I appreciated his thoughtfulness in seeing me for a while before he left. "Yeah," he said, stepping closer to me. "Since we're a lot closer now, why don't you give me a hug before I leave?" "A hug?" I frowned. "And why would I do that?" "Come on, Bella. Look." I rolled my eyes. "Fine, I'll give you a hug before you go. But I don't want you thinking this is some green light. I am not anyone's replacement, and I'm surely not a rebound, get it?" I asked, making sure to say exactly what was on my mind. The air needed to be cleared, and clear lines drawn. Kai looked as though I'd spat on his face. I instantly regretted my choice of words. "Look, Kai," I started. "You are not anyone's replacement, Bella." "Why would you think that?" he asked. "I'm not being nice to you because I expect anything in return, and I'm certainly not using you to prove a point." I sighed, conceding. "Okay," I nodded. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes this time. "Can I get my hug now?" "Of course," I muttered, stepping closer to him. I might just hug him and have him change his mind and stay. I stepped closer to him as he pulled his arms open, bringing me into a warm hug. I almost melted when his arms wrapped fully around me like a blanket on a rainy day. He deepened the embrace, resting his head in the crook of my neck, and I couldn't help but let out a sigh. My knees were beginning to give way under me. Suddenly, a commanding voice cut through the air. "Release, my sister." I jerked as Kai and I pulled away from each other, looking up to find a stranger with Dylan's features, but a more imposing build. "Lennon?" Kai asked. I looked between them, realization washing over me. "Bella." My breath hitched at the low tone, my body stiffening from where I was still wrapped around Kai's arms. Firmly, the voice repeated, the shudder that racked through my body accompanied by a tingle from the hand on my shoulder. "Don't touch her." I felt the hand on my shoulder tightening as Kai's hold loosened. giving the stranger freedom to gently tug me away, causing me to stumble closer to him. Lemons, I thought. He smells like lemons. Slowly, my eyes abandoned Kai's slightly annoyed face, drifting over to the hand that squeezed my shoulder. It felt more protective than possessive, and trailing up the arm to settle on an oddly familiar face. I hadn't seen him before, that was certain, but the resemblance he held to Luna Olive was a bit uncanny. They looked almost alike, the most obvious differences being the fact that the man had a more tanned skin tone, and the corner of his eyes were sharper, slightly upturned, just like mine. As I looked closer, my gaze observant and focused, I could notice the fullness of his lips, and although a bit small, had a color that blended well into his skin. Underneath his right eye was a beauty mark, and on the other side of his face, closer to his lips, was another. His hair had a wavy texture to it, not particularly curly, but not particularly straight either. The man finally looked down at me, ignoring Kai's presence as his eyes met mine. The corners of his lips tugged upwards, widening to form a full-fledged smile. It seemed cocky, but had a playful and soft hint to it. The stranger moved his hand so his arm was thrown over me, and he tugged me closer, practically tucking me to his side as he continued to stare at Kai with amused and slightly genuine disdain. "Leave my sister alone, yeah?" The man almost taunted, his head tilting to the side a bit. "At least while we're here." Sister. Once again, my eyes flicked between Kai and the man, settling on the unfamiliar face once again. The more I looked at him, the more it made sense, and finally, it clicked. He was Lennon, my other brother. At the realization, I relaxed into his touch a bit, sighing as I drifted my gaze back over to Kai, who still had his eyes trained on Kai. Kai exhaled sharply, the action almost sounding like a scoff before he looked down at me, a hint of want and adoration in his eyes. "I'll be going then," he said gruffly, taking a step back. I parted my lips, about to answer when Lennon interrupted me. "Yes, you will," Lennon confirmed, raising his hand and waving it in mock dismissal. "Run along, then." Kai nodded, taking another step back before he cleared his throat, turning on his heel as he headed back to the entrance, not even sparing me a stray glance. I stared up at Lennon, who had his hand in my hair, patting my head like I was some dog, my brows furrowed at the action, noticing how his gaze was still trained on the path Kai had taken on his way out. There was a distant sound of the front door being clicked shut, and Lennon exhaled softly, craning down to look at me. He smiled again, brighter and more boyish as he regarded me. "Hi." The single word caught me off guard, his tone coming out light and cheerful. It was a stark contradiction to how dark and hostile it sounded just a few seconds ago. It was almost disturbing, really. "Hi," I answered back, my voice trailing off with uncertainty. "You're Lennon." He beamed, his hand that wasn't still wrapped around me coming up to gently flick his wavy strands away from his face. "Wow, you look prettier in person. I swear your face didn't even change from when you were little." I couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed at the compliment, and I could feel the tips of my ears burning slightly. I sighed, taking in a sharp breath as he turned us around, walking us through the living room and headed for the kitchen. The scent of lemons filled my nostrils once again, but it wasn't as heavy before. It was lighter, calmer, and it wrapped around me like some sort of comfort blanket. It wasn't like Kai's. He was possessive, and the trait was very much present in his scent. Lennon pushed the kitchen door open, looking a bit glad that it was empty, and he finally let go of me. "I apologize," he started, and I could almost swear that his voice was an octave higher than it was before. I took a seat on one of the chairs in the kitchen, placing my hands on the table as my fingers tapped it subconsciously. I prompted, "For earlier," Lennon said. "It wasn't exactly my place to interrupt, especially when this is our first meeting. I'm just not a fan," I snorted. "Of Kai?" Lennon smiled sheepishly, and he nodded his head, reaching for the fridge. He pulled it open, his eyes scanning through the contents. "He just makes me uncomfortable. I'm also apologizing for not meeting you earlier." Lennon had a bottle of beer in his grip when he turned back to me, a soft pout on his lips. "Mum said you've been around for almost a week." Moving over to the cabinet, Lennon grabbed 2 clean glasses and placed them on the table before us. As he poured, he looked back up at me. "How's it been?" "Good, I think." I thought back to the whole incident, the run-in with Alexander and Stella. I hummed, choosing to ignore it. I pursed my lips, nodding to back up my words, although I was pretty sure that it seemed like I was trying to lie to myself. Lennon's smile widened by a fraction. You think? I think, I repeated with a huff, deciding to change the conversation. Why weren't you home? Lennon covered the half-empty bottle of beer, placing it back in the fridge before sliding into a seat opposite me. He held his glass with grace, his lips meeting with the rim as he tilted it and let its contents slide past into his mouth, gliding down his throat. He swallowed, exhaling and releasing a clearly satisfied sound. I had work, so I couldn't really come earlier. I was a little pained knowing Dylan saw you before I did, but Milan has always been a favorite of mine. What matters is that I'm here now. Lennon nudged the other glass closer to me, and I took the silent invitation, taking a little sip from it. Work? I asked back, a bit confused. Lennon nodded, his eyes glinting as he prepared to rant about his job. I'm an in-house contract designer, and my most recent project was with Prada, so I was obligated to stay and see how the fashion show went. He seemed happy, a bit smug too, as if he was proud of his job. My eyes raked over his clothes, taking in the silk navy blue shirt that had a low V-cut and his well-fitted black slacks. The rings on his fingers practically glowed. Now that I was paying attention, he fit his job very well. Huh, I mumbled, taking another sip from the beer. Well, I'm a doctor. Lennon cut me off, his smile unwavering. I know. I think it's adorable. I wasn't really sure what to say to that, so we remained in silence as we both sipped our drinks slowly. It wasn't as uncomfortable as I thought it would be, but perhaps that was because he still looked as cheerful as ever, even in my lack of interest. I twirled the glass in my hand around, staring at the air bubbles that popped little by little idly. The sizzling sound was apparent in the quiet room, and just as I was about to take another lazy sip, Lennon chugged all of his down, dropping the empty glass on the table soundlessly. The smart watch wrapped around his wrist dinged, the screen lighting up and catching his attention. Lennon glanced at it briefly, right before it dimmed again and went dark, and he stared up at me expectantly as I shuffled in my seat. He was still smiling, looking as unbothered as ever. Let's hit the training room, he announced, and without giving me a choice, he started heading towards a corner of the house, and since I wasn't left with a choice, I followed him. As we stepped into the training room, I was marveled, my jaw dropping at the opulence of this place. The spacious area was transformed into a cutting-edge facility, seamlessly blending traditional martial arts with modern technology. The walls were adorned with ancient werewolf symbols, etched into sleek glass panels that displayed holographic tutorials and real-time biometric data. The floor was covered with a shock-absorbing, high-grip material, perfect for intense combat training. State-of-the-art equipment lined the perimeter, punching bags that simulated various supernatural foes, gravity-altering treadmills for enhanced agility drills, and virtual reality headsets for immersive battle simulations. The room's centerpiece was a large, circular combat zone, marked by a glowing blue ring that pulsed with energy, awaiting our arrival. The atmosphere hummed with anticipation, as if the very space itself was eager to witness our transformation into formidable warriors. Lennon strode confidently towards the combat zone, his eyes gleaming with a fierce intensity, beckoning me to join him in this sanctuary of strength and discipline. "How about you show me what you got?" he said with a coy smile, taking a stance. I laughed. Okay, I could do that. Walking towards him, then taking a similar stance. After a few minutes of throwing and dodging punches, kicks, and whatnots, in a flash of movement, Lennon unleashed a lightning-fast combination that ended with a perfectly executed sweep kick, leaving me stumbling backwards and landing on the floor with a thud. Ouch! I winced, looking up to see Lennon walk towards me with a smile on his face. He offered his hand, hoisting me off the ground. Very impressive skills for a doctor. Are you mocking me? I frowned, my face scrunched up. I'm actually very impressed. You are one of the toughest opponents I've had to face. I sensed pride in his tone, and it made my heart flutter. He was proud of me. Thank you, I smiled shyly as we walked to a corner of the room where dumbbells were. Tell me about your wolf. He picked up a dumbbell. I told him about Nina, my wolf, How I found her and had to hide her from everyone and everything else while purposely avoiding her unusual abilities. Thinking about the unusual abilities made me realize that my family loved me. I could feel it, but I could also feel that something else wasn't right. Lennon? I called, and he turned to look at me with quirked brows as he continued to work with the dumbbells. Can we go home now? I asked. I just really want to spend some time with you. We can go later, he replied dismissively, confirming my suspicion. Was he trying to stall me from getting home on time? Was there something I shouldn't see? Luna Olive smiled, her pearly white teeth in full display as Layla walked into the private ward. The latter didn't want to be here. She felt choked by the smell of drugs mixed with the lavender-scented candles, but she masked it all behind a faux smile as she took steps towards her bed. Layla, Olive was beyond glad to see her adopted daughter. She loved her so much more than words could explain. When Olive's only daughter got kidnapped 20 years ago, she was devastated and slipped into depression. But the day she set her eyes on Layla, a 4-year-old blonde with piercing ocean blue eyes, it felt as though her daughter had returned to her, but in another form. Mother, Layla sat in the chair beside her bed, taking Olive's hands in hers and caressing softly. She came here with a motive, and she was going to achieve it no matter what. Baby girl, I'm glad you came. Her eyes gleamed with admiration. Layla saw it and was going to take advantage of it. How couldn't I come? My mother was bedridden after going through so much stress for that girl. Bitterness seeped through her voice as she spoke. Baby girl, Bella is my daughter, Olive said, her voice filled with conviction, her eyes shining with a mix of determination and vulnerability. Layla's expression remained skeptical, her brows slightly raised. Mother, you can't keep... No, Layla, listen, Olive interrupted, her grip on Layla's hands tightening. I had to stand up for her. Those people were tearing her apart, and I couldn't just sit back and watch. She's my flesh and blood, my daughter. Layla's lips pursed, her eyes rolling heavenward. Not this again, Mother. Layla didn't like the fact that Olive kept calling Bella her daughter. It irked her so much, but she couldn't say or show it. Olive's face contorted in a mixture of frustration and desperation. It's not her fault I landed in the hospital, Layla. I have always had health issues, but I should have been more careful. I understand now. Layla's gaze dropped back to Olive's, her expression unyielding. You're going to exhaust yourself over this, Mother. Olive's shoulders sagged, a faint smile on her lips. I'll be fine, baby girl. I just need you to understand. Layla's eyes narrowed, her voice laced with sarcasm. Oh, I understand perfectly. Olive's gaze snapped back to Layla's, her eyes narrowing. Layla, what's wrong? You're not yourself today. Layla's expression transformed, her eyes welling up with fake tears. It's just... Bella, Mother, your precious daughter. Olive's brow furrowed. What about her? Layla's voice trembled. She's been treating me horribly. You have no idea what I've been going through. Olive's skepticism was palpable. What are you talking about, Layla? Layla's face contorted in a dramatic expression. You don't know, Mother. She's vicious. Just the other day, she dragged me across the living room by my arm and threw me on the threshold. Olive's eyes widened, shock etched on her face. What? That's not possible. Bella wouldn't. It's true, Mother, Layla insisted, her voice rising. Max was there. He saw it. He's been trying to keep the peace, but I won't tolerate her behavior anymore. Olive's expression darkened, her mind clouded by doubt. Could Bella truly be capable of such cruelty? She thought of Bella's gentle nature, but Layla's convincing tears and quivering lip made her hesitate. Tell me exactly what happened, Olive demanded, her voice firm. Layla explained to Olive that Bella used to be Max's ex-girlfriend until Max didn't want her anymore. She made sure to tell the story craftily, making Bella look bad. Olive's expression softened, her voice filled with reassurance. Don't worry, Layla. I'll take care of Bella when I get out of here. I promise. Layla teared up, a calculating glint in her eyes. Mother, there's something else. Olive's brow furrowed. What is it, baby girl? Layla's voice took on a plaintive tone. I don't want to leave the pack, Mother. Not now that Bella's here. Olive's confusion deepened. Bella just came back home. Layla's face twisted in a pout. That's exactly why, Mother. Bella's the true daughter now. Everyone will fawn over her, and I'll be pushed aside. I won't let that happen. Olive's eyes filled with empathy, oblivious to Layla's manipulation. "Oh, Layla, you're my daughter too. No one will replace you." Layla's voice dripped with desperation. "But mother, if I leave, Bella will take everything. She'll ruin our family's legacy. Please, don't make me go." Olive's resolve crumbled, her heart aching for her adopted daughter. "I'll speak to Ralph, see what can be arranged. Maybe you can stay, at least for now." Layla's face lit up with triumph, though she quickly masked it with gratitude. "Thank you, mother." Olive was finally discharged and elated that she could now go home. As Olive and Layla stepped into the living room, Alpha Ralph's piercing gaze locked onto them. He strode towards them, his expression stern. "Olive, what is Layla doing here?" Ralph asked, his deep voice laced with authority. Olive's brow furrowed, confusion etched on her face. "What do you mean, Ralph? Layla's been living here her entire life. She's part of our family." Ralph's eyes narrowed. "I'm aware of that, Olive, but considering recent events, I thought it best that she relocate." Layla's smile faltered, her eyes flashing with indignation. Olive's voice took on a defensive tone. "How can you talk down to her like that, Ralph? She's one of us, your own pack member. What's gotten into you?" Ralph's jaw clenched. "Bella's return changes things, Olive. Layla's presence is complicated." Layla's eyes sparkled with malice, though she remained silent. Olive's expression turned icy. "Complicated? Layla's my daughter, Ralph. You'll not disrespect her in our own home." Ralph's gaze lingered on Layla before shifting back to Olive. "My apologies, Olive. I meant no disrespect." The tension hung in the air, thick and heavy. Ralph's expression remained resolute. "Olive, I think it's time Layla returned to Moonlight Pack. Her father's influence would be beneficial for her, and it's where she belongs." Olive's face darkened. "What are you insinuating, Ralph? That Layla's no longer welcome here?" Ralph's voice remained firm. "We've found our true blood, Olive. Bella's return changes everything. Layla's presence is no longer necessary." Layla's eyes flashed with anger, but she remained silent. Olive's voice rose. "Necessary? Layla's my daughter, Ralph. She's grown up alongside Bella's absence. You can't just dismiss her like this." Ralph's tone turned cold. "I'm not dismissing her, Olive. I'm recognizing the natural order. Bella's the true offspring, and Layla's presence could create tension." Olive's eyes blazed. "You're doing this because of Bella, aren't you? You're pushing Layla out for the sake of another child." Ralph's jaw clenched. "Bella's not a stranger, Olive. She's your daughter, our legacy. Layla's father rules Moonlight Pack. It's time she returned to her own family." The air crackled with tension as Olive's face reddened. "How dare you?" Olive spat, her voice venomous. "You're Alpha, but you'll not decide Layla's fate. She's staying right here." Ralph's eyes flashed, his alpha power surging. "Olive, don't defy me on this." Layla's eyes welled up with tears, her face crumbling as she realized her plan might not unfold as expected. Olive's gaze softened, her voice filled with compassion. "Stop this, Ralph. Both Layla and Bella are my children, my daughters. They'll be treated equally, with the same love and respect." Ralph's expression remained resolute, but Olive's words stirred a flicker of uncertainty. Olive continued, her voice firm. "All my children will be treated equally. No one will be cast aside or favored over another." Just as it seemed the tension would dissipate, Dylan stepped forward, his voice low and measured. "That's easy for you to say, Olive, but Bella's spent 20 years without our love, our protection. You can't just erase that pain and expect her to seamlessly integrate into our family." Layla's tears slowed, her eyes narrowing as she watched Ralph advocate for Bella. Ralph's voice took on a persuasive tone. "Think of what Bella's endured, alone and unloved. We can't deny her the love and acceptance she deserves, not now that we've found her." Olive's face faltered, her resolve wavering. Layla's grip on her mother's hand tightened, her eyes flashing with desperation. Olive's voice interrupted the tense standoff. "Layla, why don't you go to the East Wing room to freshen up? You must be exhausted." Layla's eyes flickered, her gaze darting to Ralph before nodding. "Yes, Mother." As Layla ascended the stairs, Olive's attention returned to Ralph. "You can't truly believe Layla should leave, Ralph. This is her home," Olive insisted. Ralph's expression remained unyielding. "It's not about Layla, Olive. It's about Bella's rightful place here." Their hushed argument continued, tension simmering beneath the surface. Upstairs, Layla pushed open the door to the East Wing room, her eyes scanning the familiar space. But as she entered, a faint scent wafted through the air, stirring an unsettling sense of intrusion. Upstairs, Layla realized too late that this was Bella's room, the very space that had been waiting for the pack's true daughter. Downstairs, Ralph's voice rose. "You're putting Layla's feelings above Bella's, Olive. That's not fair." Olive's response was firm. "I won't choose between my daughters, Ralph. That's not love. That's politics." Ralph's eyes narrowed, his voice taking on a resolute tone. "Olive, I've made my stance clear. If Layla doesn't leave our pack, I'll relocate to my private quarters with Bella, separating our households until this issue is resolved." Olive's face paled, her voice trembling. "You're threatening me, Ralph, our pack's alpha, willing to divide our family over this?" Ralph's jaw clenched. "I'm protecting Bella's rights and our pack's future. Layla's presence is a hindrance." Layla, sensing the escalating tension, slipped back downstairs, her eyes locked on Ralph. "Mother, let me," Layla began, but Olive raised a hand, silencing her. "No, Layla, this is between Ralph and me," Olive said firmly. Ralph's gaze never wavered from Olive's. "I mean it, Olive. I'll give you time to make a decision. If Layla remains, Bella and I will leave." His decision was final. He turned on his heels and stormed off. Bella. The cold air of the evening breezed past my skin as Lennon and I walked back into the pack house. After listening to his lengthy explanation, I spent the rest of my time walking back in silence, taking in the news I was just given. Layla was Luna Olive and Alpha Luther's foster daughter. What a pleasant surprise. She had pretty much been my replacement, or at least that's what Lennon said that everyone thinks. Thankfully, I had prepared myself for something like this. Well, not exactly like this, but I did brace myself for the possibility that I was going to have someone be in my place in my biological family already. I thought that by the time I discovered whether or not it was true, I would be filled with rage, jealousy, maybe even bitterness. But what settled in my chest was none of those things. Instead, I felt gratitude. As much as I didn't like her as a person, and I still don't, Layla had brought comfort to my mother in my stead. How could I hate her for that? I just couldn't. Luna Olive deserved that comfort, and even if it hadn't come from me, at least it had come from somewhere, whether it was Layla or not. Still, gratitude didn't erase curiosity or caution. Lennon's voice pulled me from my thoughts. "You don't have to come inside if you're not ready, or if you still have to take some time to let it sink in." His tone was softer than usual, as though he knew I was treading dangerous ground. "I'm ready," I replied, though my voice didn't carry the same conviction that I had hoped for. We reached the pack house, the familiar building looming like an old memory that was brought to life. As Lennon opened the door, I stepped inside and was immediately greeted by the sound of soft music and muffled laughter. And there she was. Speak of the devil and she shall appear, I guess. Layla lounged on the living room couch, her legs tucked under her as if she owned the place. But then again, it actually was. A glossy face mask glinted under the warm lighting, and her phone was in her hand, scrolling leisurely. Her eyes snapped to me the moment I stepped into view, and her expression shifted. The casual confidence melted into something sharper, like a knife being drawn. "Oh, here we go." Well, look who's decided to grace us with her presence," she drawled, her tone dripping with mockery. "Trying to seduce another boyfriend, Bella? Or are you sticking with just the brothers this time?" I blinked, stunned by the venom in her words. My fists clenched at my sides and I felt Lennon move beside me. "Excuse me?" I said. "You heard me, you whore." "That's enough, Layla," he said, stepping forward. "Bella doesn't deserve—" "Don't." I stopped him with a glance. Lennon definitely meant well, but this wasn't his battle. It was mine. Layla tilted her head, a smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, so you're going to let her fight her own battles now, Lennon? How noble of you." I stepped forward, closing the space between us. My voice was steady, calm, but there was an edge to it that I knew she couldn't ignore. "Do you always make baseless accusations, or is it just when you feel threatened?" Her smirk faltered, just for a second before she recovered. "Threatened? By you? Please, you're nothing but a wolf-less reject. Everyone knows it." "Really?" I took another step closer, my eyes locking onto hers. "Then why do you feel the need to constantly tear me down? If I'm so worthless, why do you care so much about what I do?" Her jaw tightened, and I could see the cracks forming in her confidence. She was losing control of the narrative, and she hated it. "You're manipulative," I continued, my voice sharp as a blade. "You've built your place here by playing on people's emotions, pretending to care while tearing others apart behind their backs. Do you think no one notices? Do you think no one sees you for what you really are?" Layla's face turned red, her hands curling into fists. "You don't know anything about me," she snapped, her voice rising. "I know enough." My voice was ice cold now, and so does everyone else. "You're not fooling anyone, Layla." For a moment the room was silent, except for the sound of her ragged breathing. Then, with a sneer, she shot back, "At least I'm not some broken little girl who couldn't even keep her place in her own family." The words hit like a slap, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I let the anger brewing inside me take over. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, I shifted. The transformation was quick, seamless, and when I was done, my wolf stood tall and unyielding in the middle of the living room. Layla's eyes widened in terror, and she stumbled back, her bravado crumbling in an instant. "You think I'm worthless?" I growled, my voice low and dangerous. "You think I'm weak? Let me show you just how wrong you are." I lunged, pinning her to the ground with a single swipe of my paw. She screamed, her voice shrill and panicked, but I didn't let go. "Stop it, please," she cried, tears streaming down her face. I shifted back, my human form towering over her as I leaned in close. My voice was calm, almost serene, as I said, "I'm not one to show interest in the trash someone else has thrown away. Remember that." The sound of a sharp voice cut through the air, and I turned to see Luna Olive standing in the doorway, her expression a mix of anger and disappointment. "Bella, stop this instant," she commanded, her voice leaving no room for argument. I stepped back, watching as my mother helped Layla to her feet. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded, her voice directed at me now. "This kind of unrefined behavior. I know I didn't raise you, but that is definitely no excuse for you to act like this. Is this what you learned in California? How to humiliate others and cause chaos?" Her words hit harder than Layla's ever could, because they were sincere. I could hear it in her tone, see it in her eyes, and my wolf could feel the sincerity of her words. She wasn't just angry, she was disappointed. Truly, deeply disappointed. For a moment, I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. "Mother, my voice cracked, and I hated myself for it. I didn't mean, but the words wouldn't come." She shook her head, her expression hardening. "You can go to your room, Bella. I don't want to see you for the rest of the night." "Wait." Lennon's voice stopped me in my tracks. I turned slightly, just enough to see him step forward, his posture tense. "Bella's not going to that room." Mother glanced at him, her brows knitting together in irritation. "Lennon, this isn't your concern. Bella needs to cool off after her outburst." "And Layla doesn't?" Lennon shot back, his voice sharp. "She's the one who provoked Bella in the first place. Or are we just going to ignore that?" "Lennon, this isn't the time," Luna said with a sigh, rubbing her temples. "No, this is the time," Lennon said firmly, his voice rising just enough to command attention. "I meant what I said earlier. Bella's staying with me until Layla is gone." My eyes widened, and even Luna looked momentarily stunned. "Bella shouldn't have to put up with this," Lennon said, his gaze flicking to me before returning to Luna. "This is supposed to be her home, but instead, she's being treated like an outsider. Like she's the problem. That's not fair, and it's not right." Luna opened her mouth to respond, but Lennon didn't give her the chance. "I'm taking her with me," he said, his tone brooking no argument. "Until things settle down here, she'll be better off at my place." "Lennon." "Let him," I said quietly, cutting her off. Both of them turned to me, surprise flickering across their faces. "I don't want to be here right now," I admitted, my voice trembling slightly. "Not like this." For a moment, Luna said nothing. Then she let out a frustrated sigh, her expression softening ever so slightly. "Fine, if that's what you want." "It is," I said firmly, though my chest ached as I said the words. Lennon stepped closer, his hand resting lightly on my back. "Let's go," he said softly. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. I wasn't okay, not really, but I was better now than I had been minutes ago. "I will be," I said finally. I had thought coming back here would give me a chance to prove myself, to reclaim the place I had lost. But now, All I felt was lost. Bella. After a few days, I decided to move back into the pack house. And then I moved back out again. Honestly, it wasn't the hardest of decisions to make. It was due to several reasons, but the tipping point had been one of Layla's usual performances. She practically sobbed, wailed, and spun lie after lie about how I was out to get her, how I resented her existence. Obviously, every word that came out of her mouth was false. I knew it because of my ability, and also because I was the one being lied about. But even with the truth staring her in the face, Luna Olive chose Layla. I didn't argue, didn't fight. I simply packed my things, told everyone that I was leaving, and walked out the door. Luckily for me, I didn't end up homeless. My other brother, Xavier, offered me a space in his apartment. Moving in with Xavier was easier than I expected. He worked as a consulting doctor at the same hospital where I'd just started a job. The minute he heard I had decided to move out of the pack house, he offered me a room in his apartment. I hesitated at first, not wanting to intrude, but Xavier brushed off my concerns with a shrug and a smile. "You could just pay me back with your lovely cooking," he joked. It turned out to be a pretty good arrangement. We were both busy with our schedules and our paths rarely crossed, which suited me just fine. The hospital was a whole new world. The fast pace, the constant energy, it was overwhelming, but in a good way, a really good way. There was no time to dwell on my past when I was busy juggling patients and learning the ropes. I was even able to spend time with Cora a few times. She was recovering well, and the thought of being close to her every day was calming in itself. When Lily, one of my college friends, invited me to a bar to celebrate my new job, I hesitated. The last thing I wanted was to be surrounded by loud music and drunk strangers, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. "You deserve a break, Bella," she insisted. "Come on, one drink won't kill you." Famous last words. The bar was packed, the air thick with the scent of alcohol and perfume. Lily had dragged me straight to the counter, ordering drinks faster than I could protest. I sipped cautiously at first, but the buzz hit me quicker than expected. "Loosen up," Lily laughed, nudging me. "You're too uptight for your own good." Maybe she was right. Maybe I did need to loosen up. So I ignored the little voice in my head telling me to stop and ordered another drink. By the third glass, the world was spinning just enough to feel exciting. I leaned against the counter, laughing at something Lily said, though I couldn't quite remember what. "I know I said that you should loosen up, but I kind of think you should kind of calm down a bit," Lily warned, her smile fading just a bit. I waved her off. "I'm fine. Seriously." She gave me a doubtful look, but didn't push. "I'm going to dance. You can join me when you're finally ready to loosen up." She winked at me and danced away to the dance floor. The bar was too crowded, and my focus was on trying not to trip over my own feet as I slid off the stool. But then, out of nowhere, a strong hand took the glass out of my hand. "That's enough." I looked up, blinking through the haze of alcohol, and froze. Kai. He was standing there, towering over me with that infuriatingly calm expression he always had. His sharp jawline and piercing eyes were impossible to miss, and the scent of pine hit me like a wave. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice coming out more accusatory than I intended. "I should be asking you the same thing," he said, his gaze flicking to the empty glasses on the counter. "How much have you had?" "None of your business," I snapped, though the words lacked bite. Kai's lips pressed into a thin line. They looked cute. "You're a doctor now, Bella. You should know better than this." "Don't lecture me," I muttered, crossing my arms. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not lecturing you. I'm actually concerned." The sincerity in his voice caught me off guard, and for a moment I didn't know how to respond. "I'm fine, bossy. I'm here with Lily," I said finally, though the words felt hollow even to me. Kai didn't look convinced. "And where's this Lily?" Kai's jaw tightened. "Come on, you're not staying here." Before I could protest, he took my arm, guiding me toward the exit. The cool night air hit me like a slap, clearing some of the fog from my mind. "I don't need a babysitter," I muttered, though I didn't pull away. Kai glanced down at me, his expression softening just a fraction. "Maybe not, but I'm not leaving you here." Lily chose that moment to come out, holding her heels in her hands as she ran down the shore flight of stairs that led in and out of the club. Kai's car was parked a block away, and the walk gave me just enough time to sober up, at least enough to realize how embarrassing this was. "We could have called a cab," I said as he opened the back door for us, and I noticed how quiet Lily suddenly was. He didn't respond, just waited until we climbed in before shutting the door and walking around to the driver's side. The silence in the car was heavy, broken only by the hum of the engine as he started driving. I stared out the window, the streetlights blurring together as we passed. "Why were you drinking so much?" he asked finally, his tone calm but firm. I shrugged, avoiding his gaze. "Celebrating." "Celebrating what? Getting blackout drunk?" "Oh, don't be a killjoy," Lily sneered from where she sat. "People go to clubs to celebrate all the time." I winced. It wasn't that bad. I had no idea why I was intending to placate him, but it felt right. Kai sighed, shaking his head. "You're better than this, Bella." I slumped back in my seat, suddenly feeling very small. When we reached the building, Kai opened the door and helped me out, his hand steadying me as I swayed slightly on my feet and Lily climbs out using the other door. The alcohol buzz was wearing off, replaced by a wave of exhaustion that made my limbs feel heavy. "I'll walk you to your door," he said, his voice calm but firm. I nodded, too tired to argue, and let him guide me up the stairs to my apartment. I fumbled with my keys, cursing under my breath as they slipped from my fingers. Kai bent down, picking them up with ease. "Here," he said, unlocking the door for me. I pushed it open, and Lily walked in before I stepped inside, the familiar scent of lavender and vanilla greeting me. For a moment, I thought he would leave, but before he could step back, I grabbed his wrist. "Wait," I said, my voice slurring slightly. He raised an eyebrow, looking at me cautiously. "Bella, you need to rest." "I will," I promised, tugging on his wrist. "But you can't just leave like this. Come in." "Bella," I didn't let him finish, pulling him inside and shutting the door behind us. "I don't want to be alone," I admitted, my words spilling out before I could stop them. I think I'll leave you two alone," Lily said, heading to one of the other rooms. His expression softened, and for a moment he just stood there watching me. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Fine. Just for a minute." Satisfied, I led him into the living room, collapsing onto the couch with a heavy sigh. "See, not so bad," I said, smiling up at him. Kai didn't return the smile. Instead, he crouched down in front of me, his gaze steady. "Bella, you're exhausted. You should be in bed." I waved him off. "The couch is fine." He shook his head. "No, it's not." Without waiting for my response, he slipped an arm under my knees and another around my back, lifting me effortlessly.